Are you self-employed? Don't think you need business insurance? Think again. Business insurance from Zensurance is a no-brainer for every business owner because it provides peace of mind. A lot can go wrong. A fire, stolen equipment, or an unhappy customer suing you. That's why you need insurance. Don't let the "I'm too small for this" mindset hold you back from protecting yourself. Zensurance provides customized business insurance policies starting at just $19 per month. Visit Zensurance.com today and buy your policy online in just a few minutes. Zensurance, mind your business.
Frequency Podcast Network. Stories that matter, podcasts that resonate.
35 years ago today, a nation watched in horror.
There was utter pandemonium outside the university building as ambulances carted away the injured. Police have now confirmed 14 students dead, all women. Another dozen people were hurt, caught in a rampage that witnesses called a human hunt, with the gunman yelling, "I want women."
The Montreal École Polytechnique Massacre. A shooter, a young man, motivated by his hatred for women, walked into the school with a rifle and killed 14 people. 14 young women killed simply because they were women. 14 brilliant young minds, just about to begin their lives, full of hope, full of potential. 14 young lives so brutally cut short. The horrors of École Polytechnique galvanized the women's movement in Canada. It prompted Parliament to create a national action plan to combat violence against women. 35 years later, violence against women remains an epidemic in this country. I'm David Smith. Today, on The Big Story, we're marking 35 years since École Polytechnique, honoring the legacy and examining Canada's progress. Natalie Prevost was there that day. She was shot in her mechanical engineering class, along with 9 of her classmates. 6 of them died. She has gone on to become one of Canada's most well-known gun control advocates, and it's a great pleasure to have her as my guest today. Hi, Natalie.
Bonjour.
It's been 35 years now since that terrible day, December 6th, 1989. How are you feeling this year on the anniversary?
Oh, that's quite a landmark. It's an adult life, 35 years. And we're having a lot going on regarding gun control. And we are worried that we don't see action, that we don't see decision taken. So, and symbolically, December 6th is an important date, but we also have a government that may launch an election in the near future, and it can have a real bad impact on what we are expecting from this government regarding gun control. So it's an important period of the year for us, but in the 35th anniversaries, we've gone. We had to go on. This one is pretty anxiogène. Sorry, I don't know the word for that in English.
No, that's okay. That's okay. You've got some anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're anxious because we don't see any results, and December 6th is in 6 days.
So why do you think it's still important for us to mark this anniversary of the Polytechnic shooting every year? What's still important about marking this as an occasion?
The real importance of memory here is because feminism and violence against women are still an actuality. And we have to remember, because we have to remember that our society is still a fragile society. on that issue, and and we see more and more femicide in these days. So we are still at risk that something like what happened 35 years ago happens now. But also, we have to keep that memory alive, because all over the world, there's some women who cannot have what we feel is an ordinary life. They cannot go to school. They cannot walk freely in the streets. They had to be accompanied by men. So for me, Polytechnique is a symbol of the fight for equality for women.
If it's okay, Natalie, could I ask you to tell us what do you remember about that day, December 6th, 1989? If you could take us through what happened to you.
Oh. I will. It's just a moment before. I just want to tell you that there's some years where I can go back there, and it's a bit like it was the story of someone else. This year, for many reasons, I am much more close to my emotions, and it's a bit more difficult to go there, because I don't know if my the way I see things just evolves, and I see things differently. But that day it was the last day of school, or maybe one of the last day. It was a Wednesday afternoon, and there had been snow all day long. It was a very I find it very beautiful when there's a lot of snow. There was a lot of snow on December 6th, 89. And on a personal aspect, on that morning, I had to go with a team of professional engineers. They were doing, they were studying a project, and I was witnessing their work because I wanted to do my finishing project, my integrative project on their work. So I was very excited because I felt that I was there. I will succeed that bachelor degree, and I will be an engineer. So it was a very energetic and fun day for me. And my day was finishing with that class where we were presenting all our mechanical projects. And my team was one of the last, if not the last. So at the end of the afternoon, at the beginning of the presentation of my classmate, Eric was in front of us. There was a guy who came in and shoot in the wall just behind me once. And we were all surprised. It was not clear what was happening. And for me, it was maybe a joke, because I had never been in contact with weapons, with firearms. So we were there and a bit worried, but never know what to do. And he yelled at us to split the class in two, and the guys should go to the left, and the girls in the corner at his right. And it was not quick enough for him. So if I remember correctly, he shoot another time and yelled at us, quicker, split. So the man left, and he asked, do you know why you were there? And I answered, you must know that I was a student involved in student unions. So for me, it was almost natural to answer back. So I said, no, we don't know. Why are you there? And he said, but because I hate feminists. And I answered back to him that I was not a feminist, that we were not, I was talking for all of us. So we were not feminist. And, but he can come study with us if he wants. And he began to shoot. And I remember I understood then, because I saw the eyes of one of my classmates. She died in front of me. It was very quick, but I knew. And personally, I don't really know what happened, but uh, and then it's quick. You don't know how quick it is. He shoot it to us 30 bullets. It's very, very quick. And I fell on the floor. I remember being on the floor. I remember hearing his steps when he left the room. And before I probably lost consciousness a few moments. And I remember asking myself, I don't want to go through this. And I wanted to leave, and I was looking for another country. And in my mind, I just passed many countries. Can I go there? Can I go there? Can I go to the States? Can I go to France? Can I go to England? And every time I said, no, no, there's no way. There's nowhere else. Everywhere it can happen. And I was there, 23 years old, understanding that my world was collapsing, because I could have never imagined something like that happening. And I stand up. I tried to find help. So I walk at the door, and but there was a man in front of that door, and I thought we were locked there. By that man was checking the door, that nobody exit. So I came back. I told the girls, don't move, play dead. He's checking. And we waited. And it is cold and long, long. And then you hear the alarm starting, and you don't know what to do. And even if you had seen many, many James Bond movies or Impossible Mission or I don't know what, there's nothing you can do but wait and listen. And my mind just erased all the images I have seen. And it came back a year after in a dream. So I presume a year after I was able to recover that memory.
Mm-hmm.
But that's awful.
Can you talk to me a little bit more about what that was like those years after the shooting? A lot of people may not know this about you, Natalie, but you continued your studies at Polytechnique in the wake of
I
that
finished
shooting.
my bachelor
And you
did.
finished your degree. You went on to do a master's degree, which I find so remarkable. What was that like for you personally, going back to school there after what you had been through?
Again, it was another way to see things. Crisis management didn't exist either in 1989. It happens in organization, but imagine, not just me, but Polytechnique reopened less than a month after. Students had to pass their final exam in January, and we were back in class by the end of January. So less than 2 months after the massacre, we were back in the school. The school had been cleaned, repainted, repaired, and thing was going on. It's when I see it with my adult's eyes, my manager's eyes, I am amazed of the capacity of everyone, teachers, people who work there, um, all the students that came back, stand up, and recreated a school that was able to give diplomas to all finishing students that May. With my eyes today, it's a wonder. But it was the time we were doing things like that. We had to roll our sleeves and go. And I had forgotten that it was so quick back on the school benches. Uh, but that was the way it was in that time. I stayed in Polytechnique to do my master degree, but that's something else. In 1990, there was not a lot of jobs. The economy was difficult, and engineers were not so popular in organizations. So, just a moment ago, I told you it was difficult for me to find a job. So, um, beginning my master degree was a way to keep moving on. I think that everything I did and every difficulties in my life, my way to cope with life is to find a way to always move forward. Um, it's my strategy. Maybe I should have taken something else, but that's the way I am. I am built.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you for reliving that for us. I know it must be a difficult memory, but I think it's part of the importance of the day is remembering what happened. It was an event that shook the fabric of this country really to its core, and it really did change things, I think, for the better in Canada. And I'd like to end today talking a little bit, if we can, Natalie, about how you went on from that experience and you've devoted a lot of your life to advocating for gun control in this country. And that's a file where we've seen progress, and we've seen laws changed, laws strengthened and weakened again over the years. And as you've mentioned already today, we are coming up to a federal election in this country. So on the 35th anniversary of the Polytechnique shooting, how are you feeling about gun control in Canada and how this federal government's doing on that issue?
I believe more than ever that we have to remove completely from Canadian hands household style weapon. We have to get rid of it because we are entering in a new time in history where living together will be more difficult. And if we have very dangerous weapons in our hands, the impact on fragile people, on um, when we have troubled times, can be disastrous. We have to do something, and we have to do it quickly because, and we are not far from that day. There will be one day where it's too late. It will be too expensive, too difficult to remove those kind of weapons from our hands. That's why we're so anxious about the next days, the next weeks. It's because it has to be done now. If it's not done by this government, we don't think it's possible we'll be able to recover in 20, in 30, in 50 years. It will be too late. We will be a bit like what's happening in the United States. There will be too much firearms in circulations, and we won't be able to keep the control. And Pierre Poilievre wants to get rid of what has been adopted. He wants to get rid of a simple tool that will help us stay a safe and peaceful country where We will not be afraid to bring our children to school. We have never had a mass shooting in a high school or in a primary school, but with troubled minds, with the easiness to find assault style weapon, still, even with the ban of 2020, we don't know what can happen to Canada. And we're so close to United States. And we sometimes believe too much that having a weapon is a way to protect ourselves. It's done, it's created to fight, to kill. And I'm not talking about hunters and hunting rifles. That's something else. That's in our history. That's the way we succeeded to strive with Canada, with our nature, to be the Canadian we are today. I understand that, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about assault style weapons that are directly created to kill people. We have to do that now, and it's now or never, I think.
If there are any young women listening to the podcast today, Natalie, and they're not sure about diving into post-secondary education and trying to become a professional like an engineer, what would your advice be to young women who are struggling with that decision right now?
On my hospital bed, I remember all women I reminded all women from Canada, if you want to study in engineering, go study in engineering. It's a wonderful profession, and I still deeply believe in it. We can change the world being engineers. We have a daily impact on the lives of everyone. Clean water engineers are behind. Clear soil engineers are behind. Clean air engineers are behind. The fact we can go to the moon, engineers are behind. Driving, sports, materials. We change the world, and les défis, what we have to face is so important in the next 20, 40, 50 years with all the issue we're facing, climate change. We will need engineers, and they will keep our capacity to live safely, peacefully in a healthy world.
Natalie Prevost, you are such an incredible woman and an incredible Canadian, and it's been such an honor to have you as our guest on the Big Story podcast today. I thank you so much for your time.
It's a pleasure. And thank you for taking the time to listen to this story. I do not share it very often these days. It took me time, so thank you for respecting that need for me.
Of course. Thank you again for your time today. That is Natalie Prevost. She survived the École Polytechnique massacre, went on to finish her studies at that school, became an engineer, and in addition to her long and successful professional career, she is also one of Canada's most well-known gun control advocates and advocates for women in Canada. We thank her for her time today. Today, we remember them, the 14 victims of the Montreal Massacre, gone but not forgotten. 35 years later, more work still to do. That's all for The Big Story today. A reminder to listeners, you can listen to The Big Story on the Seeker app, Seekr, Seeker. I'm David Smith. Until next time, thank you for listening.